A very good morning, children. Welcome again to the English online class. Children, in today's class, we are going to start with a new topic of grammar, that is the fifth topic, figure of speech, which is also known as literary devices or poetic devices. But before starting figure of speech, let us first know what is a figure of speech. It is a phrase or word having different meanings than its literal meanings. It conveys meaning by identifying or comparing one thing to another which has connotation or meaning familiar to the audience. That is why it is helpful in creating vivid rhetorical effect. Now let us see the functions of figure of speech. Figure of speech is not only used to embellish the language but also cause a moment of excitement when reading. It is used equally in writing as well as in speech. It in fact provides emphasis, clarity, or freshness to expression. Clarity, however, may sometimes suffer because such as connotative and denotative meanings. It also strengthens the creative expression and description along with making the language more graphic, pointed, and vivid. Children, there are several figure of speeches in English language, more than 200 and 250 figure of speeches are there. We cannot cover all of them, but yes, few of them we can cover. So in today's session we are going to cover 20 to 21 figure of speeches one by one. So you have to pay attention here. The first one is alliteration. The repetition of an initial consonant sound is known as alliteration. For example, she sails, she shells by the seashore. The second one is anaphora. Anaphora is the repetition of the same word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses or verses. For example, unfortunately, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time on the wrong day. The second one is repetition. It is the repeated use of a word or line to lay emphasis. For example, in poem No Men Are Foreign, the word remember is repeated 5 times. So this is the repetition. Now the fourth one is apostrophe. Directly addressing a non-existent person or an inanimate object as though it were a living being is known as apostrophe. For example, oh, you stupid car, you never work when I need you to. Bert sighed. The fifth one is assonance. Identity or similarity in sound between internal vowels in neighboring words is known as assonance. For example, how now, brown cow. The sixth one is metaphor. Metaphor, it is an implied comparison between two dissimilar things that have something in common. For example, all the world's a stage. The seventh one is hyperbole. Hyperbole is an extravagant statement, the use of exaggerated terms for the purpose of emphasis or heightened effect. For example, I have a I have a ton of things to do when I get home. The eighth one is irony. The use of word to convey the opposite of their literal meaning. Also a statement or situation where the meaning is contradicted by the appearance or presentation of the idea is known as irony. For example, "Oh, I love spending big bucks," said my dad, a notorious penny pincher. Now the eighth one, that is onomatopoeia. The use of words that imitate the sounds associated with the objects or action they refer to is known as onomatopoeia. For example, the clap of thunder went bang and scared my poor dog. The 10th one is oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which incongruous or contradictory terms appear side by side. For example, he popped the jumbo shrimp in his mouth. The 11th one is paradox. A paradox is a statement that appears to contradict itself. For example, "This is the beginning of the end," said Eeyore, always the pessimist. The 12th one is personification. It is a figure of speech in which an inanimate object or abstraction is endowed with human qualities or abilities. For example, "That kitchen knife will take a bite out of your hand if you don't handle it safely." The 13th one is pun. A pun is a play on words, sometimes on different senses of the same word and sometimes on the similar senses or sound of different words. For example, Jessie looked up from her breakfast and said, "A boiled egg every morning is hard to beat." The 14th one is simile. A stated comparison usually formed with like or as between two fundamentally dissimilar things that have certain qualities in common is known as a simile. For example, Robert was white as a sheet after he walked out of the horror movie. The 15th one is consonance. Consonance is the repetition of a consonant sound in a sentence. It can be at the beginning, middle, or end of the word. The 16th one is imagery. It is the creation of any sensory effect like visual, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, tactile, kinesthetic, organic to create scenes in the poem. The 17th one is enjambment. When a sentence continues into two or more lines in a poem, it is known as enjambment. For example, in the poem A Legend of the Northland, they tell them a curious story. I don't believe it's true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. the sentence continues in the last two lines, that is, tale to you. The 18th one is refrain. Refrain is a verse, a line, a set or a group of lines that repeats at regular intervals in different stanzas. For example, in the poem The Duck and the Kangaroo, said the duck to the kangaroo. In this poem, the sentence said the duck to the kangaroo was repeated at regular intervals. It is different from repetition because here the repetition is being done at regular intervals. The 19th one is cynic. It is a word or phrase in which a part of something is used to refer to the whole of it. For example, in the poem Ozymandias, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, here the word hand is used to refer to the sculptor who made the statue of Ozymandias, and the heart is used to refer to the king Ozymandias who gave the right expression for the statue. 20th is transferred epithet. It is an adjective used with a noun, refers to another noun. For example, in the poem The Snake Trying, pursuing stick. Here it is not the stick that pursues, rather the person who carries it is pursuing. Now, the last one is antithesis. The use of opposite words in close placement is known as antithesis. For example, in class 9th poem, The Song of the Rain, the voice of thunder declares my arrival. The rainbow announces my departure. Meaning of arrival is to come and the departure means to go. So, the two opposite words are in close placement here. Now children, these were the different type of figure of speeches that we have done today. I hope that you all have understood. Now let's again recall what is a figure of speech. A figure of speech is a deviation from the ordinary use of words in order to increase their effectiveness. Basically, it is a figurative language that may consist of a single word or phrase. It may be a simile, a metaphor, or personification to convey the meaning other than the literal meaning. Now let us see the importance of the figure of speech. The first one is it enhances the beauty of writing. It makes the sentence deeper and leaves the reader with a sense of wonder. It brings life to the words used by the writer. The second importance is the figure of speech not only shows the writer's intent but also his purpose of using such language. The third one is it adds flavor to the writing and makes it so much more enjoyable for the reader when he or she reads it. So this was all. Thank you.